In this video, we'll be reviewing recording prescriptions within the medical examination note in iPatient Care. Right now, we have a patient up and that particular medical examination note in this case. And we're going to notice under this treatment plan area, this RX option to select. So we'll click on that, and that brings up our RX list. So here we're able to see past medications that we've recorded for this patient. We have some options in displaying the information below. If we want to show all, we can see just active. We could also check in on our history and ineffective medications as well. And you'll notice some basic information is shown about the status. Is it signed? Has it been printed? What the medication is, and some other information off to the side too. Now, if we want to record a new medication, at the upper right, we can click on this plus button to add. Now this is going to bring us an option to select a template. These can help us save time if we're frequently using and prescribing the same medication. As you'll notice, this little star icon, it's organization template. So for organization, perhaps there's regular medications we prescribe. We can quickly select those and proceed. We also have a button here for personal template, maybe templates that would more pertain per provider. Those could be made as well. In this case, we'll just move on by clicking the next button without selecting a template, just to show you what that looks like. As you would imagine, at the top, we can begin by putting in the medication that we want to prescribe. So we can start typing in maybe the first few characters, and then we'll click off to the right-hand side, this button here, and that will help perform a search of medications with that name. And you notice we have a switch here to choose if we only want to see the generic versions of that medication. We can scroll through our list. We'll see the medication type and some details about the medication. You'll notice a note at the bottom here. Anything in gray might be inactive or obsolete. So if we were to scroll down, we could find some medications perhaps in gray, and that's what that indicates. But for simplicity, we'll make our first selection here at the top. And when we make that selection, you'll notice it fills that information out for us. As a provider, they can come in here and make adjustments to many of these different fields. What should be taken. We can see there's this little clock icon for even at administration time, if that needed to be designated. Other instructions, the duration and days. At the upper right, we have a calculator for pediatric dosage. We can save this as a template. So again, if we want to save ourselves time in the future, this is a frequent medication, we can make our template. That's where we do that up at the upper right here. We also have some other buttons that could be useful, including drug instructions that we could pull up a website and take information or print from that. We're going to see the SIG here be filled out based on the other information we complete. To the right of that, we have a button where we can select special dosage if we need to. And so we'll have this window, as you can see here, and we can complete this hitting this plus button and filling out special dosage requirements if we want to note that. We have a PRN button, or rather checkbox we can select, which stands for as needed, essentially. We could check that, or we have the stat if they need to take it right away, right now. If we go a little bit further down below, we have the order date. So it's date and time stamping our current time for this particular medication order. If we wanted that to differ from when the patient should start taking it, we could modify the start date. We also have how much should be dispensed. Below that, we have other information we could fill out. If we need to change the dispense unit, the reason, or the number of refills, we could list that in this window here. Below that, we're actually going to find the pharmacy that this is going to transmit to if we're sending this electronically. We have this option come up because this was designated within this patient's demographics as their default pharmacy. But we could change that if needed. Over off to the right, we have that magnifying glass. So we can click that and begin a search by pharmacy name or zip code, whatever is helpful to us. What's generally a good idea is at the bottom here, we can have an organization group of pharmacies if that's helpful to us in the nearby area, or favorites similarly can accomplish that goal for common pharmacies. If we're doing a search, we can oftentimes flip this back to all and then type in our zip code, and that's going to help do a search for all in that particular area. So just keep an eye on these selections that are available at the bottom. Well, we'll leave it set to the one that it is set to. But again, as a reminder, when you go into the patient demographics, there'll be a button at the upper right to be able to select the patient's default pharmacy. Okay, we can also put in a pharmacy note if we needed to record anything in there. We could have we have some other checkboxes below that, DAW, dispense as written, and some of these others as they would apply. And then finally, we have our provider selections. So we can select a supervising provider or other provider here to be able to record their approval. And at the far right is where the provider would put in their signature. So at the bottom, we could right away transmit this if we have that set up with the right connection to SureScripts through our account. So that could be transmitted. We could print this out or fax it as well. We could also hit OK just to record this. Now I don't have the right settings on my demo environment to record this medication, so I'm going to back out and hit cancel. But again, this is going to show up as a line here for this patient to connect to them in their documentation. Up at the upper right here of this window, as was similar to before, let me scroll up here, we have still the option if we were to select, if we didn't transmit it at that time or wanted to print it later, as was mentioned, we could check the checkbox and still transmit that here, or we have the fax button or printer button if we want to do that at a later time. Now it's worth noting that this can also submit controlled substances. There's an add-on to be able to do that. So if you're interested, feel free to get in touch with us. And we'll also note that when you go through and fill out and record a controlled substance, you'll get a notice or a warning on that too, that is a controlled substance. So we'll get those notifications within the system too. Finally, it's worth mentioning we have some options under this action area, including preview. If we wanted to look at what we've done, if we wanted to go back and make changes, we can click this edit button. Or for simplicity's sake, we can also, this little circular arrow button, we can reorder this as well, which is really handy. So we hope you found this helpful. Of course, once we've recorded our medications, our prescriptions, those will show up on our note here as well as we fill that out. Well, again, thank you for watching this training video on prescriptions.